Good morning, dear colleagues from Brazil. My name is Ralf Risser. I'm a psychologist from Austria. My relationship to Brazil is that I have been there several times, also on congresses. One was the ICTCT workshop in Campo Grande some 10 years ago now. And also some 10 years ago, Professor Rosenstraten has translated my book, Assessing the Driver, to Portuguese language. And now I have been asked to give a presentation about how to evaluate different policies of traffic. Probably you will feel that my talk will not be so much about evaluation, but rather about opinions and ways of thinking I have on traffic and how it should develop in the future, and also what our role can be in this context. I want to start with the thing that we all know but don't think of. In contrast to plants, people and animals have to be mobile in order to get everything that we need for a living. How this is organized for people is a matter of different disciplines, not least psychological and social sciences. But strategies that we see today is planning for the automobile, and often little or no planning, or often bad planning for alternatives. Why is this a problem? 50% of the population or more, and in developing countries and in threshold countries certainly much more, cannot use cars or other motor vehicles. They depend on an often poor infrastructure, and they are endangered and killed by motor vehicles. What is needed? We need measures for safe mobility, and we need measures for sustainable mobility. Mobility that is economically sustainable, ecologically sustainable, and socially sustainable. For economical sustainability, we can state the fact that the return for investment for 1 kilometer of public space that enhances walking or cycling and that keeps car use, especially speeds and numbers of motor vehicles, under strict control, is much higher than the return for investment for roads that are dedicated to cars. But many interests of strong lobby groups are in favor of car use. Oil industry, car industry, insurance industry, assets and repair industry, even the health system. Good business due to injured people, organs from motorcyclists, etc., comes, cynically speaking, for the health industry. Up to ecologically sustainable, it is clear that to support green modes is useful in this respect. But it seems that responsible people do not believe in this. Do they have economic interests, is the question. Or is there poor knowledge of facts? Or is the interpretation of facts such that conclusions are not clear and the stronger lobby groups win? Politicians, do they do their business in this respect? About social sustainability, we talk about livability, about safety, about aesthetics, about comfort in the public space. Such social sustainability can only be achieved under conditions that those more than 50% that cannot use the motor vehicles get appropriate mobility provided. Otherwise, the costs for supporting them will arise, or they will get supply problems, or criminal activities will develop. In any case, frustration will prevail, causing social problems of all types. Now, how to provide sustainable mobility? Think of walking, cycling, public transport. Public transport is very good in many developing or threshold countries. Maybe not as far as comfort is concerned, but with respect to frequencies, flexibility, user-friendliness, in the sense that one can get on and off wherever one wants, simple payment modes, etc. It should be tried to keep these open, communicative and highly flexible and improvisatory features, like for instance in Brazil. Of course, in highly developed industrial countries like in Europe, the trends have been different. Structured and well-organized systems prevail, some delivering a very good and attractive service, others not so good, with low frequencies, badly organized stops and stations, and low flexibility. All these things can be analyzed and improved with the help of interactive measures with test persons, with pilot towns or pilot cases involving psychologists and social scientists. Let's talk about walking a little bit. How would you deal with walking? First, you have to provide space. Take away space of cars. See below, I will talk about that later. See to lower speeds of cars, allow more narrow lanes for motor vehicles, and give more space for boardwalks. See what is said above. Return for investment is good. Shoppers come walking. We know shoppers come walking. The return for investment for infrastructure that enhances walking is higher than for car-dedicated roads. And the task of psychologists and sociologists is to convince both decision makers and the public of the advantages of walking. Economically, we have to convince decision makers. Concerning health, we have both to convince decision makers and the public. Concerning fitness, comfort and a relaxed lifestyle, we can talk to the public, develop awareness-raising campaigns, etc. And for those who have no other possibilities than to walk, the authorities can show that they care for them. Another point is cycling. Many people are cycling, but their role is not supported so much by their planners. The situation for cycling in most countries is similar than for walking. There is too little space allocated for cycling. The difference of the cycle compared to walking, of course, is that with the cycle you can cover larger distances, and that means that the role of cycling can be even more important when it comes to good traffic planning. And the question is, how can walking and cycling ever be important when they are so restricted in the distances that they allow? Because also with a cycle it is difficult to imagine to travel more than 10 to 15 kilometers. But the answer is, in Europe, about 50% of all car trips are shorter than 5 kilometers. Half of all car trips are shorter than 5 kilometers, and about 15% are shorter than 1 kilometer. I do not believe that this is much different in many other towns and villages of South and Central America or Asia or of Africa. These distances that I have just mentioned can easily be covered by cycling and walking, and together with public transport, of course, many long distances can be covered. And as I said, if countries want to invest their money wisely, they should invest in walking and cycling infrastructure and in public transport. Plus, that they should allow for car traffic under the condition of control of speeds and the reduced amount of motor vehicles. Allocate less space to them. Now, let's talk a bit about safety. In connection with safety, testing is something that we psychologists do. Most of us work in this area. Looking if drivers are apt for driving, or if persons are apt for driving, is psychologically useful work, of course. But this, in our case, happens when they already have caused problems, at least for most groups. I know that in Brazil, lorry drivers and bus drivers are tested as a standard. I think you know that. However, I think generally we should provide possibilities to test at early stages in general, before anything has happened with the driver. We should test more on the strategic level, that means with respect to personality and attitude features. And we should not put too much weight on skills. We know that the most skilled group, that is young males between 18 and 24, who are skilled after 2 or 3 years of practice driving cars, is the most endangered group of all groups in traffic. So skills are obviously not the problem that we have to deal with. We have to deal with personality and attitudes. And we should learn from personality and attitude testing for the education that we implement. We can learn about the shortcomings that people have in those areas and react to this with our education strategies. Now, what about rehabilitation? Rehabilitation is, of course, very useful work, but psychologists who do this work should learn as much as possible about the traffic system so that they can lead their work in rehabilitation courses in the right direction. For instance, the role of speeding is very difficult to understand. That is an issue that not even planners and politicians understand, and many politicians believe that it's no big deal if people surpass the speed limits a bit or drive a bit faster. We should help people to understand problems connected to problematic behavior in traffic more generally, because in traffic more persons have died in all of the world since 1900 than in all wars together. We have a fresh dissertation from Germany that is 4 years old that has proved this clearly. So traffic causes bigger problems than wars, causes bigger problems than criminality, but politicians do not believe in this, police does not believe in this. They think this is just peanuts. How about education and enforcement? All people can use the public space. Everybody has to have the possibility to get out into the public space. Those who are weaker than the average grown-ups are usually not car drivers or vehicle drivers, however. They are children, sick persons, impaired persons, temporarily impaired persons like people with child prams, hands full after shopping, drunk people, etc. There are old people, all kinds of people that in some respect have a weakness or a temporary weakness. And these persons usually walk. Walkers are vulnerable. They cannot hurt a car driver, but vice versa. It is so that car drivers or vehicle drivers can hurt or injure or kill pedestrians. The same goes for bicyclists. Car drivers or vehicle drivers injure or kill bicyclists and not vice versa. However, traffic education is often formulated in this way. Children, youngsters, old persons, impaired persons, bicyclists, etc. should take care of car drivers. They should be trained, they should be educated to avoid accidents. Children should be trained to take care of grown-up motor vehicle drivers. This is paradox. What has to be demanded is car drivers have to be educated much, much better. They have to be made aware that they drive a heavy and powerful machine in a social environment where you have children, youngsters, old people, etc., all that have been mentioned on the road. All of them are vulnerable. Many of them are not mature. Many of them are not in the state of full grown-up capacity. Education has to make sure that safety is provided in a reasonable respect here. The role of speed has to be made clear, the role of motor vehicle speed. Even if it is difficult to say what exactly is appropriate speed, insert speed limits from other countries in the world that have good traffic safety records and enforce these speed limits. Very well done studies, for instance by the Norwegian Institute TOI, have clearly shown the gains from seeing to it that speed limits are respected. Law enforcement has to focus on those who endanger others and not so much on those who are endangered by others. Nevertheless, police in many countries often talk about the problems that pedestrians and cyclists cause more than about the problems that vehicle drivers cause. Why is this so? One explanation could come from a sociological perspective. There is a higher probability that people with social influence and status are in the car than outside the car. This may affect the acting of the police. However, in all these processes that I have mentioned here, testing, rehabilitation, education, enforcement, psychologists and social scientists have contributed and should go on contributing with their knowledge and know-how. Now let's talk a bit about infrastructure. For motor vehicles there should be more limited space, or in any case there should not be ever-growing space. And limited speeds have to be provided. These are keywords. Set measures to reduce and to control speed, and less place will be needed for motor vehicles. The same is valid for homogeneous speeds. The more homogeneous speeds are, the safer is motor vehicle traffic and the less space does it take. Next, provide more space for walkers and cyclists. The more of them are out on the road, the better is their per capita safety. Research has shown this very clearly. And if you have more walkers and cyclists out on the road, they will see to it that local infrastructure for shopping, for pleasure, for playing, for communication, for small-scale business, etc., will grow. All these measures together that I have just mentioned now will provide better safety, a better infrastructure, better police enforcement, better education. Now the last point that I want to refer to is research. What research should be done from the point of view of psychology and the social sciences? What comes to my mind first is always non-profit marketing. We have to learn under which conditions people would accept to adapt a more sustainable lifestyle. We have to implement these preconditions according to what we have understood. We have to test in practice and in interaction with the target groups whether we have understood correctly, and then we have to adjust preconditions accordingly. This is the cycle of non-profit marketing. Everything has to be based on the question whether target groups are satisfied with what is offered them, and they are prepared to use what is offered to them and to accept it and to use it in the way that is intended. Another thing that we have to deal with is to develop analysis methods. We have to develop methods that help to analyze behavior, whether it is safe, sustainable, communicative, etc. And we have to develop better methods to understand behavior. Why do people do things that seem strange or paradox or irrational? Why do physicians smoke, for example? We know since a long time that knowledge alone, knowing the traffic rules alone, is not enough to influence behavior in the wished for direction. Our next point is education. We have to learn about the reasons of certain types of behavior. And we have to develop further methods to educate people in these respects. You can use group dynamics, apply modern technology-based didactic materials, develop teaching and exercising methods, etc. And last but not least, we have to focus more on interdisciplinary work. We have to summarize, for instance, what is known about economic, ecological and social effects of different types of traffic planning and traffic management. For instance, economic scientists should be involved more in order to explain more in detail the contrasts between issues of national economies. For instance, fewer accidents mean savings on this level, but who feels the benefits? And business economy. So the difference between national economy and business economy, because somebody always has to pay immediately for measures and feels this immediately. So we know that saving lives by having better traffic safety on a national economy level would save us money, but who feels the benefits? On the other hand, those who sponsor work for improving safety have to spend money immediately. This goes on a business economy level, and this is felt immediately. And therefore politicians often say no to measures and explain this by the fact that these measures are too expensive. So we need help from economists there. I think that this is it for the moment, and I thank you for listening to what I have to say, and I say goodbye from Austria.